Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I have a word for you all today, and that word is the cry of manipulation. So, our word for today is, or our title for our subject today is the cry of manipulation. And I'm going to talk about the story of Samson. But before we get into that, I just want to do a little brief description of what we're doing. So, this is our 15-day fast where we are crying out for the Lord's deliverance, and then we are seeking to birth the new things this season that God has placed inside of us. So, our fast for this 15-day fast of May is called the Cry of Life. So when we birth something new, the cry represents life. It's a very slim chance if the baby does not cry that that baby's life will be saved. So that's why we're birthing something in this new season, and that's going to be produced and is going to give life. And then we're also crying out for deliverance. But this particular subject for today on day 7 is called the cry of manipulation. So, what is manipulation? So, manipulation is an act of controlling or influencing others by attacking their mental or emotional state to get what you want or unfair advantage. So, we all know that the power of manipulation, especially when it comes to tears. So, manipulation is also a type of lying, it is deceptive. So you can deceive others by your cry that is persuading people to believe you. So God knows our cry. He can distinguish between the truth and a lie, and he can distinguish it he can distinguish it even through the cries that we cry out to him. He knows when we're in desperate need of him, and he knows when we're seeking ways to be manipulative to get our wants, because we are his children, and as we are his children, he knows us because he created us. So just like if you are a mom like myself, you would know when your child is being manipulative. You'll know when they're crying because they're hungry. You know when they're crying because they're sleepy. You know when they're crying because they want attention. And you also know when they're crying just to get what they want. All right. So in this story of Samson, we're going to talk about how his first wife cried to manipulate him to give her the answer to the riddle that he gave to her people at their wedding feast. So manipulation also can be a form of negotiation where you're negotiating things to work out in your favor. So it's control, and then it's the ability to influence one another based off their mental or emotional state for your own advantage. Okay. So let's go in Judges chapter 14. Judges chapter 14, verse 1. It says, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen this Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as a wife. Okay. And then we're going to skip down where it says Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring towards them. Hold on, y'all. Nah, I need to skip some more. And the lion and Samson tore the lion apart with his bare hands. So let's go here on verse 10. It says, Now his father went down to see the woman, and Samson made a feast there, as it was customary for bridegrooms. When he appeared, he was given 30 companions. He said, Let me tell you a riddle. Samson said to them, If you can give me the answer within the 7 days of this feast, I will give you 30 linens of garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linens of garments and 30 sets of clothes. So basically, Samson gave them the riddle in order for him to gain. He wasn't necessarily being manipulative. He just was like, hey, y'all want to play a game? And then if we play this game, it's going to either be for my benefit or for your benefit, right? So he gave them the riddle. And then we're going to skip over here to verse 15. Verse 15 says, finally, on the 7th day of the party, they went to Samson's bride and said, you have, you know what, I'm gonna go back so you guys can have the context of it. So this is what he says. This is the riddle. Tells us the riddle, they said. Let us hear it. He replied, out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet. And for 3 days they could not get the answer. Okay? And then on the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, you have better trick your husband into telling you the answer to his riddle. Have you invited us here just to rob us? If you don't find out the answer, we will burn you and your family to death. And that's the CEV translation. And they use the word trick. Trick your husband into giving you the answer. And in the King James Version, it says entice your husband to give you the answer. So now they basically threaten her, saying if you don't trick him, if you don't deceive him, then we're going to kill you and your family, is what they said to her. So she really didn't have much of a choice. She didn't really have much of a wiggle room. But I want to share with you all her method that she chose to do. And that method was in verse 16. It says, then Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing. So her method was to cry. So she says, you hate me. You don't really love me. You have given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. And then in verse 17, it says, she cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the 7th day, he finally told her, because she continued to press him. So what she did was emotional manipulation and mental manipulation. She emotionally cried nonstop until she was able to get what she wanted. And then she mentally manipulated him by annoying him. It says she just continued to press him like, just give me the answer. Tell me. If you love me, you'll tell me. So she got on his last nerve to the point where he just finally gave in and gave her the answer. So that was a form of manipulation. And we have all done these tactics. Even our children does these same trickery things of manipulation on us as parents, where they will cry nonstop until you actually give in to give them what they want. Or they will continuously nag at you and bug you until you just say, huh, get it, right? So that's an attack on your mental to the point where you just got so annoyed that you can't take it anymore. And then in the same way, spouses manipulate their spouse just like Samson's wife did to him. If you love me, you'll do this or you'll do that for me. So that's a form of manipulation. And family and friends will manipulate you through tears for sympathy or for favors. I don't know if you all have ever had family or friends tell you, oh, I just love you so much. You my best cuz, or, you my favorite. Can you do this for me? Or, they start a conversation. As soon as they call you, starting a conversation with sympathy because they want to ask you for something. And they use tears to manipulate you, to allow to help them and to persuade you to work out in their favor, to give them something in their favor because of their tears. Right? So all these are ways that we as mankind has been manipulative, but it actually backfires on us because God is not moved by our tears of manipulation. He does not react just because we want him to do something for us. He does not react just because we're sobbing and we desperately want something versus it actually being a need. I remember last year I was crying for at least 3 days because I wanted something that he said no to, and I just crying like, what do I want it, right? But he said no, and I thank him today that he said no and that he stuck to that no. It's because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what he was actually protecting me from. And when God tells us no, it's for a purpose, it's for a reason, because we don't know what we don't know what he know. We can't see the future like he see the future. Right? So when we try to pull these tactics and manipulate God through our tears for him to give us what we want, he's just like, little do you know, this is not something that you want. Right? And that's how we have to be with our children as well. But sometimes we just give in because we just like, we tired of it. We tired of them crying. But God is never going to get tired of you. He's never going to get tired of you. He's going to protect you, and he's going to give you what you need. God is moved by our genuine cries. Have you ever cried out and the word, you couldn't even say what you were in need of? The only words you had to say was, Lord, help me. Just help me. Or you couldn't even say that. You just was crying from the depths of your soul because your heart was just broken. You couldn't do it and you desperately needed his help. That's when God steps in. That's when God moves on our behalf. Not when we're trying to manipulate him to get what we want. So I just wanted to share with you all that God knows us, and he is able to distinguish between our cries. Just like any mother would be able to know when her child is crying for food, crying to go to sleep, crying for attention, or when they're severely hurt. And God responds for our needs, and he responds for when we're severely hurt. He also gives us some of our wants when they are in alignment with his will. But we don't get to manipulate him to get what we want. We don't get to fall out and throw fits and cry about it and say, well, let me just cry and see what God do. See, let me cry long enough to see if he's going to give in. Because she cried for 7 whole days. And as we can see, this was man's weakness. For us, this was man's weakness for Samson, but as mankind, this is also our weakness. Anytime a woman cried, especially in a case, automatically the case is now given over to her in favor. Right? Anytime a child will cry, more than likely the person who was trying to discipline that child will now become soft at heart to not want to harm them or discipline them in the way that they wanted to, because now the tears has now caused them to deviate from the plans of what they had in mind. And that's what happened with Samson. He said, I didn't even tell my mom and my father who raised me, who I know for a fact that I love. But here you is telling me if I don't give you the answer, I must not love you. And she might have thought it worked out in her favor. She was able to give her people that riddle. But Samson became angry. And when he became angry, he destroyed a multitude of the Philistines with fire. Or their property with fire. And then the Philistines came and killed her and her father. Their household. So she didn't get to live after all. So we have to be mindful of what we do. We don't want anything to backfire against us. We don't want to be considered as deceptive or liars, to have things to be persuaded in our way. Okay, so that is all that I have for you all on today. Like I said, this subject was called the cry of manipulation. If you guys just joined in, just catch the replay. And that's about it, y'all. That's about it. So I just wanted us to be aware of not wanting to manipulate God to get what we want. That's not the goal. For God loves us and he cares enough about us to provide our every need for us. And he knows best. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for tuning in. God is love. Bye.